there's a moment in every connection. Sometimes at the very end, when the loudest thing someone says is nothing at all. Silence becomes the final sentence in a chapter that no longer needs words. And often, when a man walks away quietly, it's not because he doesn't care. It's because he's already said everything, just not with his mouth. There comes a moment in every relationship when silence becomes more powerful than any spoken words. It's not confusion, nor is it a game. It's a decision. When a man no longer chases, explains, or argues, apology has been. It's often because he's arrived at a place of emotional clarity. He isn't confused once the apology has been. He's just done trying to be understood by someone who isn't listening. Apology has been. The silence that follows isn't coldness. It's his way of choosing peace over chaos. It's the quiet that comes after trying for too long to fix what's already broken. Some men don't say goodbye in loud or dramatic ways. Instead, they leave slowly, retreating into silence after countless moments of emotional neglect. That silence holds the weight of everything they tried to communicate. Every unmet need, every overlooked effort, every time they felt invisible. And when words no longer carry meaning, silence becomes the loudest truth. It's not always about pride or punishment. It's about preservation. A man may still care deeply, but he walks away quietly because staying began to cost too much of his self-worth. Often, this silence is mistaken for indifference, when in reality, it is full of pain. Men are taught to stay strong, to suppress vulnerability, to hold it together. So when they reach their limit, they don't always cry or beg, they just go quiet. It's not that they feel nothing. It's that they've felt too much. They detach not because they didn't love, but because they finally realized their love was not being met with the same energy. And so, silence becomes their boundary, their way of finally choosing themselves after feeling like an option for far too long. When you're left in silence, it can feel like abandonment, but the truth is, it's often a man's final act of self-respect. He may not have given you a speech or an explanation, but he gave you something just as honest: distance. And within that space, he hopes you'll find your own clarity too. Because silence, while painful, also teaches. It teaches you to hear what words tried to hide, to feel what actions never aligned with promises. And sometimes, it's in the absence of noise that we finally understand what someone was trying to say all along. Men often process emotional pain in ways that are difficult to recognize from the outside. While some may react with visible emotion or spoken words, many choose silence as a form of coping. This silence is not emptiness. It's a quiet shield. It's the sound of someone who is breaking inside but refuses to fall apart in front of anyone. Instead of showing vulnerability, a man might retreat inward, preserving what little dignity he feels he has left. To the world, it may look like he's unaffected, but in truth, he's carrying a storm inside that he doesn't know how to express. There's a deep misunderstanding that silence equals indifference. But for many men, silence is how they manage the codes of heart attach. They aren't being cold or distant to punish. They're simply trying to survive the emotional weight without letting it consume them entirely. Speaking about pain requires a safe space, and when that doesn't exist, silence becomes the only refuge. It's not a sign of weakness, nor is it manipulation. It's a silent scream that hopes someone might still notice without being told. This form of heartbreak is particularly painful because it leaves no clear closure. When someone disappears quietly, you're left replaying every moment, wondering what he felt but never said. His silence forces you to search for meaning in actions instead of words, which can be more haunting than any conversation. You might never fully understand the depth of his emotion because he buried it, even from you. But in his silence, there was still a message. One that said, I cared enough to hurt, but not enough to stay where I wasn't seen. Silence, then, becomes a man's final expression of both love and surrender. He doesn't want to fight anymore, doesn't want to explain or justify what you didn't value. He just wants peace. And as painful as that may be to witness, it is also honest. Some goodbyes don't come with final words or slammed doors. They come with long pauses, unread messages, and an absence that speaks louder than anything ever said aloud. In that silence is his heartbreak, his history, and his quiet way of letting go. Silence comes when words have lost their meaning. A man may have tried countless times to express himself, to explain what he needed, to fight for a connection he believed in. But when those words are repeatedly dismissed, misunderstood, or met with indifference, he begins to realize that speaking no longer serves a purpose. He starts to feel like he's repeating himself in an empty room. Eventually, the energy it takes to keep talking outweighs the hope that someone will truly listen. And that's when silence takes over. That silence isn't born from anger or resentment at first. It's born from exhaustion. He grows tired of being the only one trying, the only one showing up emotionally. Every unanswered concern, every ignored vulnerability chips away at his will to communicate. And after a while, it feels safer to say nothing at all than to keep handing over pieces of his heart just to have them overlooked. The silence becomes his shield, not to hurt anyone, but to protect himself from being hurt again. When a man reaches this stage, silence is no longer a pause, it's a boundary. It says, I've done all I can. I have nothing left to give in words. It might come across as cold or distant, but behind it is a deep well of emotion that's gone unacknowledged for too long. Silence is his way of stepping back, not because he doesn't care, but because caring too loudly for someone who doesn't hear him has become painful. In this quiet, he finds clarity that he couldn't find through conversation. So when his words stop coming, it's not always because he ran out of love. It's because he ran out of ways to express it without losing more of himself. His silence is not an empty space. It's full of everything he once hoped you would understand. And though it may seem like a soft goodbye, it's often the most powerful one. Because in the end, when a man no longer speaks, it usually means he's already said everything that mattered, and it still wasn't enough. He may have loved with all his heart, quietly carrying the weight of that love in moments both big and small. His care showed up in his consistency, has been. In the way he showed up when it mattered, in the silence he kept when he could have argued. But even deep love can become heavy when it is not met with the same energy. Over time, what was once full of warmth turns to something that aches. He begins to notice the imbalance, how he gives and gives, yet still feels unseen. And slowly that love starts to retreat, not because it vanished, but because it became too painful to keep offering without return. In his heart, he may have wanted to stay longer, to keep fighting for what he believed the relationship could be. But love isn't enough when it's one-sided. The silence between messages, the lack of effort in return, the sense of being taken for granted. All of it adds up. Once felt like home begins to feel like a place he has to beg to belong to. He starts to feel the loneliness that comes from sharing space with someone who no longer reaches for him emotionally. And in that space, he realizes that staying is no longer love. It's self-abandonment. So he begins to pull away, not with drama, but with quiet steps. He doesn't make a scene or seek closure through long, emotional conversations. Instead, he lets go in the same way he held on. With grace, he walks away with feelings still alive inside him, but with the understanding that love, no matter how deep, cannot thrive where it is not nurtured. His silence becomes the goodbye he never wanted to say out loud. It's not a punishment, it's a surrender to what is. That quiet exit says everything his words couldn't. It speaks of sleepless nights spent wondering why he wasn't enough, of moments when he felt invisible despite being right there. His silence is the echo of a heart that gave its all until it had nothing left to give. And while it may seem like he left without warning, the truth is he had been leaving for a while. Each unmet need, each unanswered message, each unreciprocated effort was a step closer to goodbye. When he finally stopped speaking, it wasn't because he didn't love anymore. It was because he finally realized that love alone was not going to make him stay. His goodbye wasn't a dramatic exit. It was quiet, calm, and almost unnoticeable at first. Some men don't make a scene or slam doors behind them. They simply stop knocking. They don't leave with anger or a need for revenge. They leave because staying has started to erode parts of who they are. It's not about proving a point or making the other person feel guilty. It's about emotional survival. When a man stops showing up, it's often because he stayed far longer than he should have, hoping things would change, hoping he wouldn't have to choose himself in the end. This kind of goodbye doesn't come with a loud declaration. It comes with slow detachment, with the quiet realization that love should not feel like begging to be understood. He likely fought for the relationship long before he ever decided to walk away. He replayed conversations in his mind, questioned whether he was asking for too much, tried to shrink his needs just to keep the peace. But peace never came, and when he finally recognized that staying meant slowly disappearing, he chose to walk away so he could start finding himself again. That silence he leaves behind is full of everything he wanted to say, but no longer had the strength to repeat. It's not indifference, it's the result of trying for too long with no change. He may not explain himself as he goes because he's done explaining. He may not send one last message because the truth is he's already sent dozens that were ignored in some way. His silence is not passive, it's powerful. It is him reclaiming his energy, his self-worth, and the emotional space he gave to someone who didn't value it enough. In the end, the ones who leave quietly are often the ones who cared the most. They just stopped trying to prove it. And while the absence may feel sudden, it was actually built over time, piece by piece. In every moment, he felt unheard, unappreciated, or unseen. His final goodbye wasn't spoken. It was felt. In the silence, in the unanswered calls, in the missing presence that once held everything together. And that's what makes it so loud. Because sometimes the softest exit is the one that echoes the longest. The strongest men don't always shout their pain or broadcast their heartbreak to the world. They don't create scenes or plead for closure. Instead, they walk away in silence, not because they feel nothing, but because they felt too much. There's a quiet strength in choosing peace over confrontation, in deciding to leave with dignity rather than staying to prove a point. When a man finally chooses to step away without a word, it often means he has spent a long time struggling internally, trying to make it work, trying to hold on just a little longer. For him, leaving silently is not weakness, it's restraint. It's the understanding that staying in a situation that continually hurts him will only lead to bitterness. He may still love deeply, but he knows that love alone cannot carry a relationship. He walks away without drama because he no longer wants to explain why he feels empty or unfulfilled. In his silence, there is maturity, self-respect, and a deep awareness that he can't force connection, effort, or understanding from someone who isn't willing to meet him halfway. This kind of silence is powerful because it reflects all the words he wished he could say, but no longer needs to. It carries the weight of every compromise he made, every part of himself he gave, every time he silenced his needs in the hope of keeping peace. Eventually, he realizes that real peace isn't found in shrinking himself, it's found in choosing himself. So he leaves quietly, not to hurt the other person, but to stop hurting himself. He accepts that sometimes the most loving thing he can do is walk away. In the end, his silence is not a punishment. It's a release. It's the final act of a man who has come to terms with the truth. He gave his best, tried his hardest, and stayed longer than he should have. And now, with no words left to offer and no energy left to spend, he chooses stillness over struggle. His quiet goodbye is not cold. It's the purest form of respect for what once was and for who he is now becoming.